Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mrs. Avila presenting your lesson for Friday, April 24th. Today we have two essential questions. First one is, do I understand the impacts of climate change on New Mexico? Second one is, can I read graphs and understand the difference between fluctuations and trends? All right, so our agenda for today, we are focused on New Mexico impacts and graph skills practice. We're going to read the EPA New Mexico Climate Change Impacts article. And we're going to fill out the graph skills worksheet document. So that means you will need to have this screencast-fi video playing. You will need to open up the EPA New Mexico Climate Change Impacts article, and you will need the graph skills worksheet document open as well. Okay. So meme of the day, when your mom takes homeschooling to a whole new level, giving you like cafeteria food there. Baby, I have to record my video, okay? Okay, so going to the article first. I'm going to read this aloud for those that benefit from me reading aloud. If you don't, you can skip ahead in the video to the point where I am showing the graph skills worksheet. All right, so this is called What Climate Change Means for New Mexico. So New Mexico's climate is changing. Most of the state has warmed at least 1 degree Fahrenheit in the last century. Andrew. Yes, okay, I'm doing my video. You need to be quiet, okay? Yes. Shh. Throughout the southwestern United States, heat waves are becoming more common and snow is melting early in spring. In the coming decades, our changing climate is likely to decrease the flow of water in the Colorado, Rio Grande, and other rivers, threaten the health of livestock, increase the frequency and intensity of wildfires, and convert some rangelands to desert. Our climate is changing because the Earth is warming. People have increased the amount of carbon dioxide in the air by 40% since the late 1700s. Other heat-trapping greenhouse gases are also increasing. These gases have warmed the surface and lower atmosphere of our planet about 1 degree during the last 50 years. Evaporation increases as the atmosphere warms, which increases humidity, average rainfall, and the frequency of heavy rainstorms in many places, but contributes to drought in others. Greenhouse gases are also changing the world's oceans and ice cover. Carbon dioxide reacts with water to form carbonic acid, so the oceans are becoming more acidic. The surface of the ocean has warmed 1 degree during the last 80 years. Warming is causing snow to melt earlier in early spring. So this picture here, rising temperatures in the last century. The last decade was the warmest on record in the Southwest, and the source was EPA climate change indicators in the United States. So New Mexico has a lot of reds there. It has had warming effects for sure. Okay, I'm going up to the blue part of the article. Snowpack. As the climate warms, less precipitation falls as snow, and more snow melts during the winter. That decreases snowpack, the amount of snow that accumulates over the winter. Since the 1950s, the snowpack has been decreasing in New Mexico, as well as in Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming, which matters because the headwaters of the Rio Grande, San Juan, Colorado, and Navajo rivers are in these states. Diminishing snowpack in northern New Mexico will shorten the season for skiing and other forms of winter tourism and recreation. The tree line may shift as subalpine fir and other high-altitude trees become able to grow at higher elevations. A higher tree line would decrease the extent of alpine tundra ecosystems, which could threaten some species. In other words, the ecosystems might change. Some trees could go higher up in the mountains. Well, what about the things that live at that point? All right, ski areas like Taos Ski Valley, looking at the picture here, depend on seasonal snowpack, which has declined at all long-term monitoring sites in the Sangre de Cristo Range. Okay, water availability. The changing climate is likely to increase the need for water but reduce the supply. Warmer temperatures increase the rate at which water evaporates or transpires from plants into the air from soils, plants, and surface waters. Irrigated farmland would thus need more water, but less water is likely to be available because precipitation is unlikely to increase enough to make up for the additional water lost to evaporation. Annual rainfall is more likely to decrease than increase. So soils are likely to be drier, and periods without rain are likely to become longer, making droughts more severe. The decline in snowpack could further limit the supply of water for some purposes. Mountain snowpacks are natural reservoirs. They collect the snow that falls during the winter and releases water when the snow melts during spring and summer. Over the past 50 years, snowpack has been melting earlier in the year. See the map on the back page. Dams capture most meltwater and retain it for use later in the year. But upstream of these reservoirs, less water is available during droughts for ecosystems, fish, water-based recreation, and landowners who draw water directly from a flowing river. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I had to go in and figure out how to go to the next page. All right, so here we have a diagram. Snowpack 1955 to 2015, percent change. Big red dots are less than 80. Medium, well, kind of medium. You guys can look at the key here. So that's based on percent. The blue is greater than 80. Oh, this was less than negative 80. And the blue means greater than 80. All right. So there's very few blue marks. That would be an increase of snowpack. All the reds are representing a decrease in snowpack. All right. Says the snowpack has declined at most monitoring sites in both states. Agriculture. Increasing droughts and higher temperatures are likely to interfere with New Mexico's farms and cattle ranches. Hot weather can threaten cows' health and cause them to eat less, grow more slowly, and produce less milk. Livestock operations could also be impaired by fire and changes in the landscape from grassland to woody shrubs more typical of a desert. Reduced water availability would create challenges for ranchers as well as ranchers, as well as farmers who irrigate fruits, vegetables, pecans, and other nut trees. Wildfires and changing landscape. Higher temperatures and drought are likely to increase the severity, frequency, and extent of wildfires, which could harm property, livelihoods, and human health. On average, more than 2% of the land in New Mexico has burned per decade since 1984. Wildfire smoke can reduce air quality and increase medical visits for chest pains, respiratory problems, and heart problems. The combination of more fires and drier conditions may expand deserts and otherwise change parts of New Mexico's landscape. Many plants and animals living in arid lands are already near the limits of what they can tolerate. Arid means dry. A warmer and a drier climate would generally extend the Chihuahuan Desert to higher elevations and expand its geographic range. In some cases, native vegetation may persist and delay or prevent expansion of the desert. In other cases, fires or livestock grazing may accelerate the conversion of grassland to desert in response to the changing climate. For similar reasons, some forests may change to desert or grassland. So wildfires can change the landscapes, change what kind of climate zone you're in. Okay, this picture, in 2012, New Mexico experienced the largest wildfire in the state's recorded history, the Whitewater Baldy Complex fire. Andrew, stop. Pests. Warmer, drier conditions make forests more susceptible to pests. Drought reduces the ability of trees to mount a defense against attacks from pests such as bark beetles, which have infested 200,000 acres in New Mexico. Temperature controls the life cycle and winter mortality rates of many pests. With higher winter temperatures, some pests can persist year-round, and new pests and diseases may become established. Extreme heat, hot days can be unhealthy, even dangerous. Certain people are especially vulnerable, including children, the elderly, the sick, and the poor. High air temperatures can cause heat stroke and dehydration and affect people's cardiovascular, respiratory, and nervous systems. Higher temperatures are amplified in urban settings where paved and other surfaces tend to store heat. Warmer air can also increase the formation of ground-level ozone, a key component of smog. Construction crews may have to increasingly operate on altered time schedules to avoid the heat of the day. So warmer days can be dangerous. Tribal communities, climate change threatens natural resources and public health of tribal communities. Rising temperatures and increasing drought are likely to decrease the availability of certain fish, game, which mean like wild animals, and wild plants on which the Navajo and other tribes have relied on for generations. Water may be less available for domestic consumptions, that means like us drinking them, especially for those who are not served by either municipal systems or reliable wells, which includes about 30% of the people on the Navajo Nation. So there's some people that don't have access to clean drinking water, who must haul water to meet daily needs. Recurring drought and rising temperatures may also degrade the land itself. On the Arizona portion of the Navajo Nation, for example, the Great Falls dune field has advanced almost a mile in the last 60 years, threatening roads, homes, and grazing areas. Extreme heat may also create health problems for those without electricity, including about 40% of the people on the Navajo reservation. So a dune field, like sand dunes, think about like white sands, um, has grown in a part of Arizona by about a mile. And some on the Navajo reservation don't even have electricity. So hot days would be very dangerous for them. Yes, it's over. Okay, so we will be doing something with that article a little bit later. But now we're going to your graph skills worksheet. It looks like this: fluctuations versus trends on a graph. As a student climatologist, you must be able to read graphs and understand the differences between fluctuations and trends. You learned about both of these vocabulary words in Amplify Lesson 1.2. I will put the worksheet that we used for that filled out in the Google Classroom so you can go back and look at it. But you have to fill this one out. So we have summer temperatures in New Mexico are rising as the title. On the y-axis, we have temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. On the x-axis, we have summers, June through August. Blue lines are the average temperature, and the yellow line is the trend. So we have many fluctuations here, but there's an overall trend that the temperatures are increasing. So you're going to go through and answer these questions, okay? Also, I had to put the graph lines in. It didn't have that, and I thought it was going to be very difficult for you guys without that. So I put the graph lines in, and they may not be exactly perfect, but you can get the gist of things. Like this one may not line up exactly with that line, but that line belongs to it, okay? All right, so you have a total of 9 questions, really 10 because one has 2. What is the title of this graph? What is the x-axis label? What is the y-axis label? What does the blue line on the graph represent? How can you use the word fluctuation to describe the blue line on the graph? What 2 years have the largest fluctuations between each summer? And I give you a hint here. You may want to get a ruler or a piece of small paper like a sticky note and mark evenly spaced tick marks on it. Then you can hold the ruler or piece of paper up to the graph and compare each fluctuation to find the two largest fluctuations on the graph. And your answers are going to be a set of years, like for example, 1920 to 1921 and 1945 to 1946. So one answer goes here, the other answer goes here. All right. And remember, they're going to be written like this. The years are going to be written like that. 7, what does the yellow line on the graph represent? 8, what is happening with the yellow line from 1900 to 2010? Really two descriptive words here. So what can climatologists say is happening to summers in New Mexico based on the data from 1900 to 2010? All right, you guys are going to fill this in. Don't forget to turn it in when you're done. Press the turn in button. And that's it for today.
Mama,
Thank you.
I called Mama.
Hold on. Hope you guys have a good weekend. I'm going to start grading this weekend, so make sure that you have submitted everything. Bye-bye.